Hello everyone, welcome to a video on the Constructed Criticism YouTube channel. I'm Spencer, host of Constructed Criticism and Limited Time Only, and the new producer of Common Knowledge, a podcast about getting better at Magic the Gathering with a focus on Pauper play. And today I'm doing my weekly deck tech, but this week I'm going to focus on Pauper. I love the Pauper format. I think it's a great format in Magic. I think that if you aren't playing on Magic Online and you're trying to get in, Pauper is the place to do it. There's tons of decks to choose from. There's so many viable decks. The format's super fun. And there's also these awesome events every weekend in the Pauper Challenge for you to play in if you want to do something competitive. And even if you don't, the community's super nice, the format's super fun, and it's definitely a great place to start. I got into Pauper because when I quit my old podcast, it was called Brain Tapped. I was invited to possibly be a co-host on a podcast called Pauper to the People, hosted by my friend Chris, who now does this amazing Hearthstone podcast that you can check out called 1600 Dust. So check that out. But he got me into Pauper because of his willingness to let me on his podcast. I didn't ever take him up on the offer, but I did buy Pauper decks because of it. And early on, my favorite Pauper deck was Izzet Blitz. And Izzet Blitz has gotten a lot of upgrades recently. And I kind of want to talk about the deck and just let you guys know about this new Pauper podcast that is on our network. So you can check it out here on the YouTube channel every week, or you can check it out on our website at constructedcriticism.com. And I believe it will also be on legitmtg.com. So check it out at those places. So for those who don't know, Pauper is a format where you only get to play with cards that have been printed at common. So let's get right into the first upgrade for this deck, and that's Augur of Bolas. So Augur of Bolas was actually recently printed at common in an expansion. So because of that, it kind of changed the format a little bit. A lot of decks got to add Augur of Bolas to their deck list, and this deck is really one of them. The deck wants to find specific cards, and Augur of Bolas lets you do that. This slot used to be taken up by Delver of Secrets. And to be honest, Delver was just this deck was never very good at being a Delver deck. And because of that, I think Augur of Bolas really does a good job of fitting into the deck, doing exactly what you need, holding the ground until you can find one of your big threats, and then also finding spells for you to cast with your big threats while holding the ground on the backside. So Augur of Bolas is a huge upgrade for this deck, and I have 4 of these in this list to start with. The other creatures we have are Kiln Fiend. So this card is a creature that there was actually Kiln Fiend standard decks that people try to play. So basically what it does is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it gets +3/+0 until end of turn. So in this deck, you're trying to really take advantage of that and just deal them as many damage as possible with your Kiln Fiend in one turn. The other card that does something similar is actually Nivix Cyclops. So Nivix Cyclops does the exact same thing. When you cast an instant sorcery, it loses Defender and gets +3/+0 until end of turn. And it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Between these two cards, you're really trying to gain an advantage. This is my favorite Pauper deck. It reminds me a lot of decks like, if you've played Standard, you might think of things like Blue, White, Heroic and Bant Heroic and decks like that. And I think that this deck does a really good job of keeping a lot of decks honest and things like that. And I think that these two cards are a huge part of it. And they're the key to the deck. So it used to be called Blue-Red Cyclops. It's since been called Izzet Blitz. And it's actually become a modern deck because of other cards that have been added to the format. We have 3 Apostles' Blessing. This card protects your combo pieces, specifically your creatures, from dying, which is pretty important. Being able to give them protection from a color when people try and kill it is pretty great. We have 4 Lightning Bolts. This is something that I don't know if it's correct as a 4 of. I think that you could easily play one of these as something like a Gush, maybe cut something else for a second Gush. I know a lot of lists are playing 3 Gush right now. That seems like a lot to me. But I think that Lightning Bolt could easily be turned into a Gush. But I think it's a pretty key card for the deck. It's something that you want to be able to kill the things in front of you. It gets you that extra damage. It actually deals 6 if they don't have a creature in play, which is a pretty big deal for 1 mana. We have Manamorphose. So 4 of Manamorphose is pretty important here. It's a free cantrip, basically, that fixes your mana, lets you go through your deck, get more spells, fix your mana. There's been so many times where I just didn't have blue, was able to cast my first blue spell, whether it's my Nivix Cyclops or some of my other blue spells, from my Manamorphose, and it's pretty key. Just being able to cantrip for free, replace its mana, and then just draw you a card. We have 3 Mutagenic Growth. This is a big change for the deck. This deck didn't always play this many of this card. I think a lot of lists for a long time played 0. They went up to 1, and now it's gone all the way up to 3. Because of this, I think that the velocity of the deck is increased from Mutagenic Growth, which is really important. So it's definitely something you want to keep your eye on. One of the things that I have in my list that not a ton of people do is Shadow Rift. Shadow Rift is an instant that target creature gains Shadow until end of turn. You draw a card. One of the things that people don't realize that you can actually do with this card, though, is you can actually target your opponent's creature that's in play to basically remove it. So you get to target it. It can't block your creature. Your creature still gets +3/+0, and you can keep going. You can target your creature. It kind of just depends on what the board state is like. If they have one creature in play and you target it with this, it actually can't block both of your creatures. But if you have one creature in play and then multiple, you can target your creature with Shadow Rift. So kind of is a versatile way to make your creatures and or creature unblockable while also cantripping, which is pretty great. And I have it as one of in my deck. We have 3 Temur Battle Rage. This card was also a big gain for this deck when it was printed. Being able to give your creatures double strike, and if they have power 4 or greater, they also gain trample is really important. Now, because of the way that the triggers work, your creatures will always have 4 power or greater when you cast this card, giving them trample, so they're just 4 power double strikers with trample all the time, and it's really, really powerful. We have 1 Artful Dodge. I think that this card is key. I've seen a lot of lists that try and cut this card for different things, and I think that being able to do it once and then being able to do it on the backside again is really, really valuable, especially when you think about things like Manamorphose, where you can Manamorphose into the front and back of this. I really, really like Artful Dodge in this deck. We have 4 Gitaxian Probe, just that free cantrip, cycling you through your deck so that you can make your guys big. 4 Ponder and 4 Preordain. Just the last bit of cantrips, making sure that you can set up your deck the way you want it. I think that these 2 cards have proven to be very, very powerful in Pauper, and I've been very happy with them. I think that they are the key to this deck's success, and you definitely should be playing your deck without them. As you'll notice, I have no Gushes in my current list. I think that card is very powerful. As I said, I could see cutting a Lightning Bolt. I could see cutting other things. One of the things, though, is I really do like Shadow Rift, and you can't play Shadow Rift and Gush. I do think that cutting a Lightning Bolt is completely reasonable. I think you cut something else as well to get those Gushes in. But, then the amount of times that either Shadow Rift or Artful Dodge has won me a game is just too many for me to not include them in the deck. I like them as fun-ofs, but I can understand if you want to go the regular route and playing those Gushes. I think that the sideboard in this deck has also gotten a lot. We have 2 Relic of Progenitus, this card letting you interact with some of those graveyard-based decks. 1 Gorilla Shaman. I actually was playing Ancient Grudge in this slot for a long, long time. One of the things that you'll notice is because of Manamorphose, you can actually get the backside of Ancient Grudge as well. But I think Gorilla Shaman just does a better job of what your deck wants to do anyway. And lets you kind of just take out those artifacts at will. We have, and specifically the artifact lands. If you think about it, you just have to pay 1 mana to destroy any artifact land. And you get to keep it in play. We have 1 Dispel, 3 Electrickery. I can see these Electrickeries kind of going down to 2, kind of just depending on the format. Maybe playing another Gorilla Shaman, playing different things. But right now I have 3 of them in the sideboard. We have 3 Hydroblast and 3 Pyroblast. The format is very much built upon the decks that involve these cards. They're very powerful at common, and in allowing you to interact with your opponents is a pretty big deal. We have 1 Smash to Smithereens. I've really enjoyed this card in this list. It lets you really punish the decks that it's good against while you have either a Nivix Cyclops or Kiln Fiend in play, and I think that not including it is kind of silly. And then we have 1 Spell Pierce. I think this sideboard is very streamlined, exactly what you want right now in the metagame, but I think that this deck can easily adjust. Whether you want things like Night Clutches, or you want 1 less Electrickery, maybe some more Dispel, maybe another Spell Pierce, whatever you want, I think the sideboard can adjust according to the metagame. And I think that's one of the powers of Izzet Blitz, is that as long as the format has been around, this deck has just been a deck. Whether it's in the top 5 or not can sometimes vary upon the format, but I think that it's a real deck. It's my favorite deck, and it's definitely a deck that I would check out going into learning to play Pauper if you haven't started already. And don't forget to check out Common Knowledge, a new Pauper podcast about getting better at Magic the Gathering with a focus on Pauper play. This is my Pauper deck. That doesn't mean it has to be yours. There are so many decks. Don't forget to check them out. Don't forget that you can also support this content by going to patreon.com/ccmtg, become a patron of this show and all the shows on this network. We really appreciate everything that people support us with. It really does mean the world to us, and we couldn't be happier. Please leave a subscribe and a like on this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite Pauper deck is. If you haven't tried Pauper, I highly recommend it. It's a super fun format, and we'll see you guys all next week.